Hello everyone. So today I'm doing a psychic reading for January 2021, the beginning of the next year. I've already done this reading and meditation and I have taken some notes, so I will just be reading my notes. So for January 2021, what was coming up was a lot of reconnecting with family, specifically distant relatives, people who you may not have seen necessarily. And of course, this doesn't apply to everyone. This is just the overall general energy of the month. And a lot of the way that I read things is through symbols that can be more of a metaphor than it can be literal, although a lot of the times they're literal as well. And so I think this is a situation where this is very literal, although it could also not necessarily be distant relatives specifically. It could also be people who are like distant relatives, if that makes any sense. So, um, just a sense of connecting with family, relatives, things like that. It's funny because I just did a reading on the year 2021 as a whole, and what was coming up was a sense of isolation. But what's coming up for January of 2021, as opposed to that, is more like this almost overbearing sense of people connecting and coming together. So I also saw this sense of wonder, and it was represented to me through an image that I was seeing that was like a kid holding up a ball to the moon, and it was like the ball and the moon were like the same, and this toy had a meaning, and it was like kind of a hidden meaning. And so this has to do with synchronicity and things that may mean something to you on a very esoteric kind of hidden meaning type of way that really evokes a lot of wonder and magic, if you will. And other people may not necessarily relate to this and might not really quite get this. So it's good to be able to find some time this month or next month, January 2021, to really kind of spend some time with your own thoughts, be able to really connect with this magic whenever there's this sense of meaning that may come into your life that may get kind of overshadowed by other people. It may be good to find a way to really kind of contemplate and keep that to yourself. There's a lot of overbearing, kind of claustrophobic types of energies that I'm seeing for this month in general for most people. Um, and it's not just for children with their parents kind of being overbearing, but it's also the parents or relatives or whoever that may be also feeling kind of claustrophobic, I guess you could say, because of just society's expectations. Like they don't feel like the children feel like the adults are kind of like running the show, but then the adults feel like there's something bigger than them and they're kind of doing what they're supposed to do, and it's almost like a sense of being trapped almost, and like everybody kind of blames someone else or something else, but it's kind of just the collective as a whole is all kind of doing the same thing. So I'm seeing more mingling coming up for January. It's funny because the holidays happened in December. I mean, Christmas, I should say, happened in December, but it seems like it's almost like a late celebration of Christmas or family gatherings coming up in January. At least that's the energy of the month. This might not necessarily be exactly literally how things go, but it's just the energy of the month, which just means it's going to kind of attract those sorts of situations. And so not everybody's going to experience these things, but out of any normal January, I would say this January will probably be more like that than most. Um, so there's more of this mingling, and it's creating this sense of missing your independence, which people have gotten to become very familiar with. This has been kind of a growth, a spiritual growth, I would say, through the whole COVID-19, where people are really learning to tune into themselves and become more aware of themselves. And so what's going on here is there's a schism between trying to go back to the old roles that people used to go by and this new found insight that everybody has, this new way of understanding themselves. I'm really seeing January being like this schism of those two things kind of butting heads, and it's like people are just realizing that these old ways of doing things are just not satisfying anymore, and so that's really what's coming up for me. And so when I asked like what could be helpful for this sort of situation, what I saw, and I'm not like religious in the sense of like following any particular religion, but what I was seeing was people looking up to God, which is, not something that I usually talk too much about, but that's what was coming up. But kind of what that means in a different way of looking at it is people looking at the bigger picture and specifically trying to tune into something bigger than themselves and really seeing the group dynamic of everyone. And this month, it seems like there's a lot of energy about the group dynamic. I think we've just kind of gone through a phase recently with December. I talked about December being a month where things are changing, and it's like we had to go through all this energy. We had to break through all these walls kind of violently, a lot of chaos. And now we've kind of made that shift, and now we're, instead of having to break through these walls, now we're having to let things go. So it's a different way. Instead of being aggressive, now we've kind of broken through. The energy is different now. Now we're still going ahead very fast, but instead of breaking through these walls, now the walls are mostly clear, and what we're doing now is we're getting rid of our baggage. And so that's just a whole new thing. And so what I'm trying to say here is that that includes the group dynamic becoming more of a importance than just like whatever your individualistic desires are, but it's more complicated than that. It's more like the interconnectedness of your individuality with the group rather than kind of being at odds with each other. So one way to go about this is to ask other people what they want, just to be clear on what other people's intentions are, what other people's desires are, what their needs are. Um, those types of things will really get the ball rolling in the right direction. And shedding new light seems to be a theme here, along with shedding old skin, so to speak, not literally shedding skin, but like metaphorically, like shedding, getting rid of the past. Um, there's a lot of healing opportunities here, and I'm seeing this as a massive identity shift, like how you identify yourself, the things that you may have been like, maybe your character, the way you interact with other people. These types of things are going to be changing drastically from here on out. And January, I see that really starting to form and like take form in a new, healthier, more healing sort of way where you're able to, be more what you want to be, more in alignment with everyone else, as opposed to kind of being, going against the grain with everyone else around you. So when I asked what to avoid for this month, for January, what came up for me was strict expectations are going to like not work for people anymore. It's just people aren't going to be having it anymore. Dragging people along to things that they're not really interested in, even if you think it's very important. Um, it's just going to come across like it's a chore, and it's not going to be a fun activity. You really have to like ask people what they're into, and it's more about this sharing group dynamic in a different sort of way than this sort of strict process of what you're supposed to do. So another thing that came up as what to avoid for this month that was kind of interesting was trying to appease other people. And what I mean by that is having positive outward expressions that aren't necessarily your authenticity, or kind of like smiling when you don't really agree with what somebody's saying. That's really going against everything that the energy of this month is about. This is a great month for really creating new identities, and in the sense that people used to kind of follow rules, or whatever, to feel like they're at home, like the sense of where your home is, like feeling at home, like the homey type of vibe. Um, People used to kind of just do what you're supposed to do to achieve that, but things are shifting now, and in order to feel like you're at home, you're going to have to form these new identities, and that is your new home. So people are not going to feel at home anymore with these inauthentic ways of being. So even if you're being positive and appeasing other people, it's not going to work anymore, and you're going to have to be, if something bothers you, it's actually going to become more easily okay for you to just express that, and you don't have to like battle people over it. Just making people aware of it is becoming more and more, I want to say necessary, but it's not about it being necessary. It's about it being rewarding to you, so that you can really feel like you're at home, you're at peace, you're in the right place. And so, like I was saying, these old sorts of ways of being are no longer what's holding the community together, and the community is now binding together in a more authentic sort of way. So when I look at the whole world, I was like, okay, well, this is all on a very personal level. So what can I see for the whole world? And what I got was just like December, I was getting that it was pretty calm and mild. And I mean, there was that bomb on Christmas that went off that apparently was a suicide bomb. That was just one guy who died, and um, that's very unfortunate. But I don't think anyone else died in that, so there was that. But besides for that, I'd say the overall energy of December was pretty calm, and I'm also seeing that for January being pretty calm and quiet. However, I did get directed towards like the center of Africa, just that vague general area. And I saw a lot of movement. At first, I saw like what looked like lots of people from around the world running to that area. I'm still not 100% sure what that means, but overall, what I was getting from this when I was trying to understand it was that there's a struggle there for people to unify in the way that um, the energy is shifting for us to do. That's like where we're at in our evolution in this on this world. And so it's like there's just so much struggle down there, and so this unity is difficult, and there's some possibility that there may be a necessity for people to die in order to be able to move on to the point where people can reach this level where they'll be able to unify more and calm down. Unfortunately, that's what I was seeing. And this has to do with just the way things are changing in the world, and just I don't know why Africa showed up, but it did. I know there's a lot of, you know, political problems there, which that might be why that is. I'm not sure. Or I think there's a lot of gangs and criminal activity there as well, which could also be part of that. So, anyways, when I asked what was good for January 2020, back to just the rest of the world and the bigger picture of what's going on here, what came up specifically for, well, in America, but also just around the world, where people are not having so much struggle with this unifying energy, was I'm seeing people just symbolically, the way that I saw it was people dancing their dance, in the sense that they're expressing themselves. They're not they're not dancing someone else's dance. They're doing their own unique dance. They're, you know, it's kind of like an icebreaker, the way that I saw it. It's like people breaking the mold, doing something brand new that other people aren't doing. It's like everybody else is kind of sitting around waiting for something to happen. And what I'm seeing really standing out is when people are able to find those self interests, those buried interests that they, you know, don't necessarily share with the world outwardly, and they're able to really kind of dig those up from the depths and creatively express that. The way I saw it was through dancing, which is symbolic, of course. So this sense of being able to celebrate your uniqueness and encouraging other people to as well. I'm seeing this is a great month for that, and that overall, even with the, you know, struggle that some people will experience with this, overall the general energy of the month is in favor of that type of activity, or that type of being, or whatever you want to call it, and it will generally be received well. Obviously, it won't be received well in every single situation, but as an overall energy, it's leaning in that direction very significantly, I would say. So for those who will oppose you, and there will be people who oppose you, but I'm seeing energetically that those people they'll be they'll have to kind of lurk in the shadows, so to speak. That's how I saw it. I literally saw like shadow people like lurking in the shadows because they couldn't come out of the shadows into the light. And so it was like they're being separated, and the people expressing themselves were able to be out in the light everywhere. I don't mean this in like the light versus the dark, good versus evil. That's not what I'm trying to do here. But that's just kind of the image that came up. And so there is this you know, separation that I'm seeing, and these people who oppose you, they will, you know, not be fond of you in the future. And so what I was seeing specifically is important is for people who are outwardly expressing themselves in new ways this month of January to really form bonds with other people who are supporting them or expressing themselves in the same way, and really forming friendship networks, whatever you want to call it, because those will really be like your cushion in the future to really protect you from the judgment of those who judge you, I guess you could say. And I'm seeing that they will also be forming a bond on some level, and there will be this division of people who are expressing themselves and people who are not. And of course, this is like not necessarily so much in January. This is looking out like maybe around March, sometime around there. I'm seeing more so that there'll be this more of a division between this new type of identity that is just like kind of breaking the mold, or creating a new mold more like. And so it's kind of separating these people, creating this further divide. I'm not talking about a political divide here. This is a different type of divide. It's kind of like creating two separate worlds where there'll be those who are more kind of mechanical, who, I hate to say it, but kind of have more spite um, towards those who are more, you know, lucky in their life and able to express joy and love easier. And then there's the other side, which is more about love, self-expression, but like that is love because you're expressing yourself, loving yourself, and sharing that with other people and creating a network through that. And I'm seeing that becoming so much more powerful than it used to be, that it creates this contrast between those who are kind of opposing it and resisting it versus those who are just embracing it. And it is the future. It is, I guess you could call it evolution on some level, spiritual evolution. And so just embrace it. And that's my reading for January 2021. I hope you enjoyed that. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel too if you haven't yet. And if you would like to check out my Patreon, where I will be discussing psychic stuff and how you can be more psychic yourself, it's $20 a month, and I will be teaching, little tips on how you can increase your awareness. Alright, thanks for watching. Have a great day.